course, attending tonight is great. Following along on the website is great. Reviewing the plans. I think the first rough draft of a funding approach will appear before that January workshop. You can ask questions on the website. You can let us know your thoughts there. There's a place to sign in and say, listen, we don't think this is a good idea, or we like this. Keep doing that. Don't do this. We want to know. And you can call us up. Those are cell phone numbers for the team. And we want to thank everyone who's taken time to contact us so far. We've gotten a couple of dozen phone calls, and we welcome those. And there are cards on the back table. Our phone numbers are on the website as well. So as you think about what we're trying to do and you have thoughts about it, maybe on a Tuesday night you're thinking, you know what, I'm thinking maybe this could work out, you can pick up the phone and call us. You can call us till about 8 o'clock at night. We're okay with that. After that, my wife gets upset with me. But we try to make ourselves really available to you. And there's also emails for us as well if you wanted to write to us. So not everybody's comfortable in public meetings and standing up and sharing their thoughts, but you can do that by calling or emailing as it works best for you. So here's what we're going to do today. Remind everybody, for many of you who are here for the first time, what the objective of the effort is, what we're trying to accomplish. We're going to talk a little bit about, in brief terms, the erosion control program. This is really the purview of your engineering firm. And y'all are familiar with Michael Poff, pretty much. You have a very good engineering firm working for you. I'm going to try to touch on what he's recommending, but don't you hate this when people say, well, but you know I'm not an engineer. And I'll do my best to sort of give you a sense of what they're doing. But on the website is their complete erosion control report. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We'll talk about why we think that what the county is attempting to do and you as a community are attempting to do here is valuable and worthwhile. I think there is a case for good shoreline management in Charlotte County. And here's the interesting thing that we've been working on since the last workshop, which is how much does all of this stuff cost? And as financial planners, we're not looking at a specific project, one thing. We're trying to look at the program over a period of years, and we're trying to look as far out as 30 years. Now, everybody here knows we're engaging in what I call a crystal ball exercise. We're trying to predict the future. It's a little hard to do that, but in all kinds of things in life or in investments, you're trying to project into the future what things might cost. And we have done some work with the engineering firm to do that. I'm going to share that with you tonight. And we're going to talk about developing a financial foundation to support the county's program. And like I say, between now and April, that thing's going to take shape. I'm not here to give you an answer tonight. We're here to explain where we are in the process, and we're here to listen to you. And we'll have a discussion at the end. So that's the end of the introductory section, and this is a point where if anyone has any initial comments they'd like to share, we can pause here if there's anything anyone wants to add, or questions or comments or concerns at this point. You're pretty good? Okay, what's the objective of the effort? Well, pretty straightforward, right? We're trying to develop a stable, long-term financial support foundation to support the Charlotte County Erosion Control Program. The county's efforts to manage the shoreline, the Gulf shoreline here in the county. And that program, when we started, if y'all were here at the first workshop, we got together to talk about the Manasota Key project. Remember? That's why the website's /Manasota. We started with Manasota, but as we learned more about the county's efforts, what was on the table, we recognized that the county is actually looking at the Manasota Key Beach Nourishment Program. We're looking at the management and maintenance of stump paths. And we're also looking at the placement of sand on Don Pedro Night Island, or as I've been advised, Palm Island, right? It's a reference we're going to use shorter. So there's a component, there's a program here that we're trying to understand the investment, what would be required, what assets you have available to you, and how to build this foundation. And in the many years that we've done this, we have learned, sometimes the hard way, that engaging the community and speaking to the public is the only way to effectively and responsibly develop a funding strategy, because what we're talking about tonight is the very difficult question of your pocketbook and you as a taxpayer, and we believe we have to talk to the people who write the checks. It's not something that is built as a consultant independent of you. So engagement with the community is the key to our work. We're working toward this recommendation to the county, and you should see this at the April workshop. But you'll see all of the steps of development along the way. We want your help to shape that recommendation in ways that work best. So this is how we've approached this task we've been given by Charlotte County. We've done this a number of times, but we have developed a certain approach. We generally are believers that the beach is an economic and it's a community asset. We believe that erosion can adversely affect the public and private property and the economy. Tourism-based economies depend on the quality of the place people come to visit. And in many cases in communities like this, a lot of people come to Charlotte County because of the beach. Not exclusively, but it's an important driver. And we believe that managing that asset well is an important economic program for the county. We're big believers in collaboration, that we have to work together. There's a lot of ways to slice and dice this project and the issues that are involved, but at the end of the day, we strongly believe that it is the best interest of the community at large if things aren't degrading or getting worse, or loss of beaches, or loss of structures, or loss of home. So the last thing we believe is that the funding stream we develop, the foundation we're going to try to build here, has to be persistent and predictable and regular, like the waves, as persistent as the waves. And we need stability and long-term thinking. That's how we like to approach the problem. So over the course of many years, we've done this a few times and gotten a lot of bruises and bumps along the way, but we've worked in Florida quite a bit. And in fact, way back in the day when Charlotte and Sarasota County looked at shoreline management in 2001, 2002, and 2003, I was actually part of the team that was working with you back then. And I was working for Coastal Tech, one of the firms that you had working for you. So I've been around this part of the state, but we didn't actually go all the way through the process of putting together a program with you back then. We've done some work in Florida, and we've been finding ourselves in North Carolina quite a bit for the last 5 or 6 years, putting together funding strategies for a variety of towns, a variety of sizes. And all of these funding strategies were adopted. There aren't any that weren't. Well, Oak Island is teetering on. Our friends in Oak Island, North Carolina, are a little bit unsure. We worked with them, completed that earlier this year, and they had an unfortunate impact from Hurricane Matthew, so they haven't quite sorted out what they're going to do there. But otherwise, we've worked on these types of issues for a while, so we've learned a few tricks of the trade we hope to share. And as we've gone through the process, there's some things we've learned along the way, and I wanted to share these with you. And this was in the first workshop, but we're here as a group of people to discover what is fair. I don't know what the proper revenue generation strategy is for your community walking in the door. This effort and this engagement and these workshops, and we're going to share our thinking with you and our analysis and ask for your help, is because we have to discover what is fair and equitable in the eyes of this community, not me as a consultant. You're the people who will be that live here and write the checks here. We need to know what's fair to you. And it's been interesting in all of the projects we've worked on, the answers to that question vary widely because each community is a little bit different. We believe that has to be transparent, wide participation. That's why we're online. That's why you have our phone numbers. That's why there's a website. And we've learned that funding strategies really can't be implemented unless the community, broadly speaking, thinks it's fair and equitable and can support it. It doesn't mean everybody can be happy. We're not magicians, but we really work hard to try to find an approach that meets the community's needs in a way that y'all can look at and say, you know, I may not like that exactly in every respect, but I think I can work with that. That's what I'm looking for. So the second secret is that each community is unique. Even though we've done this a bunch of times, I can't go get one of the funding strategies from Oak Island or Topsail Beach or Navarre Beach or Okaloosa Island and just say, hey, guess what? Here's how you do it. There isn't any way for me to do that. Each of these is handcrafted. There's no one size fits all. We're in this together. Everyone's got a stake in the quality of the community that you live in, just like your roads and your schools matter. Your shoreline and your tourist assets matter. And we spend a lot of time trying to get to know what the county has done, the community history. And I gotta say, you're not at ground zero, right? Charlotte County has an MSTU that's dedicated to Stump Pass and an MSBU on Palm Island and Don Pedro Night already that's contributing revenues to the kinds of things we have to do. So you've got to start. There's a county fund that's dedicated to the cause, and you've got a great engineering firm working on it, and you're approaching the permitting process next year. The schedule for our work coincides with the submission of the final permit application for your project that's coming up in 2018. So we try to be very aware of where you are in the process. The third thing we've learned in communities that face the cost of managing shoreline erosion is that you have to plan ahead and you have to save. It's any other investment. Time is money. We got to build a beach fund. We have to start saving as soon as we can. We're believers in minimizing debt financing if you can. I have a community of 850 people that's put $20 million on the beach and never put out a bond. They have a very good financial strategy. They have money in the bank, and they're ready for their project because they build their fund year to year, and then they put sand on the beach. We believe that's the best way. It's cheaper, like anything else. You can pay cash or card, save a few bucks. And we don't know if that's possible here, but we're trying to find ways to keep the overall cost lower. The mechanisms that we have available to us in your community in terms is the MSBU, the Municipal Services Benefit Unit, or a Municipal Service Taxing Unit. And I think most of you are probably familiar with that. There's a few of those in the county right now. I believe there's about 30 of them. But are y'all generally familiar with what those are? Pretty generally. We're talking about using those tools. So the beach management that we're doing is an ongoing task and program. It's not a project. That's why it's the erosion control program or plan. And the savings strategy, the financing strategy has to be stable, reliable, and long-term. The fourth thing, when we start trying to figure out how to put together an MSBU or a TU or the county's contribution to this and what to do with different revenue streams around the county, believe me, there is an infinite number of options and ways to put things together to build the puzzle. What I've learned over time is that they can get pretty complicated. We're all going to have a little different view of how this makes the most sense, and we have to explore those different views. But we can get bogged down in details, and we can end up losing time. And I've seen this in a couple of towns I've worked with where we spent months and months and months, and they couldn't quite get to the end. And we lost revenue years. We lost savings. And we have to try to find something that, I don't know that there's a perfect answer to this. There's going to be a reasonable, fair answer. And that's what we have to discover with you. What is the reasonable, fair approach for your community? So my best rule is there's going to be a point where I might say, you know what? I know that you have an issue there. I know that that's a valid point, but I think we've done the best we can to address it. And maybe it isn't perfect, but I think the overall package is fair and reasonable. But that's avoiding the perfection trap is important because it delays the saving of funds and makes the cost harder to manage. The fifth one, and you're going to see this slide 3 times in this presentation because I want to bring this is something we absolutely must figure out how to do. We need the help of the state of Florida. I think you're in a good position for that. We need the help of the county. I think you're in a good position for that. The beachfront property owners, the off-beach owners, we all have to build a coalition of contributors. Broader is stable, broader is better, and we have to explore how the visitors can contribute. It's impossible in my view, and I've never put together a financing plan that relied totally on property taxes or fees on owners to support these kinds of programs. And we all know, as people who live in island and beach communities, that the benefits of beaches are very widely distributed. The beach is important economically to the county, to the state, to the region, to folks that live on the beachfront, folks that live a little bit away from the beach, all around. And we're trying to build a coalition of participants along the way. And we're going to look at things like the bed tax revenues. And we're going to, some of these things are coming up in the phone calls we've got already. Hey, Peter, what about a parking fee? What's the parking revenue? Could that be part of it? How about beach badges? And if any of y'all are from New Jersey, you know what those are, right? They're not used very much down here in the South, not in Texas or North Carolina or in Florida, but they work pretty well in New Jersey. It's a different universe up there. And there's other things that people have suggested to us that's really been helpful to us. And what we do is when you call and say, you know what, have you thought about this? What we try to do is investigate that. When we come back to the next workshop, we'll tell you what we've learned about it and whether we think we can use it. The last thing that I find is really important to people is this FEMA eligibility business. And basically, it is an insurance policy for the investment we are going to ask and try to build and then make together. One of the difficult things people struggle with is the fact that we can put $5 million worth of sand on a beach and it'll be gone in a weekend. And you think, that's just nonsense, ridiculous. There is something called FEMA eligibility. Certain beaches and management programs that local governments do are covered by FEMA through disaster assistance. I got a call from my good buddy Julian Bone, who's a city council member in North Carolina. I love this guy. We worked very hard together. They're the ones with a good bank account and a great program. And he called me and said, Peter, I just got my check for Hurricane Matthew. I said, really? How'd you do, Julian? He said, well, you know, we didn't lose a single stair in that storm, but we did lose some sand. And I got a check for $7 million. We put that in our city bank account. The city has an annual budget of $3 million. He said, we're looking great because they pay close attention to what it takes to ensure that if something happens to the investment you make, you have a backup. And that's what FEMA eligibility means. And I can tell you Michael Poff and his program development process is doing everything right. And we will work with him very closely to make sure that that occurs. And it does have to do with the funding program. FEMA is happy to help you when storms come if you're helping yourself. And one of the ways they tell us, do you have a financing program that's right? If you're not taking it seriously, they're a little less helpful. So that's an important thing we have to accomplish. And the last thing I've learned is when we ask taxpayers to contribute to projects like this, they have to have confidence that the funds that are put together are dedicated exclusively to the purpose that you asked them to be used for. And that means designing and permitting, constructing, monitoring beaches, and operation of maintenance, which is a small charge. Nothing else. These revenues have to be locked in a box. They're not for beach cleanup, they're not for lifeguards, they're not for patrol cars, they're not for any of the other stuff that beaches require. This is your capital program budget, and our recommendation will absolutely ensure that that is the trick, because that is the trust between the taxpayers and the government that has to be made. And we find that when that's squishy, we can't get the community support. And we believe this is a reasonable thing to ask and to demand. So any comments or questions or thoughts at this stage? That's the end of 2.
I have a question on the funds.
Yes, sir.
Are those funds placed in a trust account?
I don't
I'm not willing to send, look at there, putting this thing together. Should we look at there to be putting this thing together? Great to put this together. The money's not in a trust account.
correct.
We're not going to allow people to share an account.
Right.
Decide where it's going to be spent.
Right. In answer to, so for those of you online, and thank you for using the mic, and we'll try to be quicker because of, but let me repeat that for the folks online. I think this is a very good comment, and the comment is that what is exactly the security of the funds to make sure that they're dedicated? That is it a trust account? What's the mechanism? And I can tell you in my experience in working, towns have different, counties and towns have different things that they do. In some communities, they pass an ordinance that says these funds are dedicated to this set-aside account. I don't know if they would use the word trust account, but it is a set-aside account that can't be used for other purposes, that is legally limited to certain things. I like that approach, personally. It comes up as a question a lot because people will say, well, gee whiz, you know, if someone else can get elected, they can change the rule. That's true. I can't tell you, and nor would anybody else unless they were willing to bend the truth a little bit to tell you that that isn't something that you have to be vigilant about your elected officials in your community, and that's a trust relationship. But I do like to see the management of the funds to be very specifically limited in real ways that are adopted by the city council that can't be changed unless it's publicly done. So I think we do the best, and I'm not 100% sure how Charlotte County would approach that issue. It's not an unusual thing that happens, but it's certainly an important one. So does that help a little bit? Okay. Well,
I mean, we deal with trust. People here, I think,
yeah.
understand.
Okay. We'll bring that up. So Lily, on the list of questions, I think that's a great one for us to follow up on and report back to you on. We're happy to do that. Any other initial comments, thoughts at this stage? Yes, sir. Tyler, if you could, there's a mic coming your way.
I found out about this meeting. There's going to be a meeting and blah, 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 blah. They showed some of the film of the
Okay.
They're not getting attacked.
Okay.
In this place, it's not so easy with that.
Okay. I think we can do a better job. And the one thing that we've learned also is as we put these workshops together, I'm saying we're at the end of the first quarter, we're really at the preliminary steps, and we take a slow approach because it takes time for the process to sink into the community. I have to say Steve Riley's here from the Inglewood paper and has done a really great job of that. We also, what we'll do, if you signed in and you have an email, we will send you an email that says, hey, the next one's going to be at this time, and we'll put you on the list and we'll contact you. The website will always have the date, so if you're looking for the time and the place, that's where to go. But I think we try to let the community has to know the process is going on, that it's important, and so we do the best. But it really is the key, and we'll try to do a little better job with the press. But I think the access to what's going on will be on that website. And you can also call us on the phone and say, what's going on with the meeting? When is this going to be? That's allowed too. Any other? Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I was not able to attend the first workshop, so I'm just a little puzzled, and I hope that you're not going to have to cover something that you've already covered.
That's okay. Feel free.
I'm just puzzled. You have nothing to do with the engineering or the plans for renourishment or anything else, am I right?
Yes, ma'am, you are correct.
You are strictly dealing with revenue.
Correct.
You are not from around here? Did I hear you say you're from Austin?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I guess I'm just puzzled. I don't know what to do.
Okay, that's a great question, actually.
I'm tired.
Okay. You know, it's a very good question. And when I used to work with the I used to be the coastal management director for a firm of Florida coastal engineers. And the engineers would design the beaches, and that was all great. And then the community would look at the package and go, boy, that's a great plan. How do we pay for it? So I've been embedded with the engineering group, and I work closely here in this community. I'll be working closely with Michael Pop, and Michael happens to be an engineer I had worked with previously. So the engineer guys are very good at all of the technical things. I have to say, in working with engineers, asking engineers to come explain things to the public can be a little dangerous from time to time. They'll put up very complicated things, and I said, look, you're not. We are a go-between between the engineers and the community, and our specialty is to focus on the revenue side so the engineers can be good on the technical. And they're really different disciplines, and we have gotten this, reputation of being pretty good at this. So we work closely with communities and the engineers, on the phone a lot with them, trying to understand the designs and the plans and the costs and things. And our job is to work with you as a community on this specific topic. And there might be a time in our workshop series when technical questions are coming up and you're not sure why the project is being done a particular way, and we will bring Michael to the meeting and say, Michael, you have to come talk to the folks because they're not sure about what you're doing or why. So and that isn't unusual for us, depending on your concerns and what you would like to know more of, that we work very closely, and they may be. In fact, Michael Pock, your engineer, will be at the meeting on Saturday. And there might be somebody from CEC here tonight. Is there an engineer here tonight? No, it's not. So our job is a little bit different than theirs. They're trying to understand waves and storm projections and erosion and shoreline retreat and longshore sediment transport, where the sand is offshore, and how to manage an inlet. Our job is to work with the people about how to underwrite those plans, assuming they're plans that you are comfortable with. So they're really two different disciplines, and we sort of take off of their back the difficult questions of finance so that they can do their job. And I try not to do what they do. They're smarter than us, I think, as a general matter. They're much better at math than we are. Does that help?
Not really.
Okay. How can I help?
I'm just wondering, and I don't mean to be disrespectful.
It's okay. It's not disrespectful.
I'm wondering why this isn't being done by the state, why we need to, and I don't mean any disrespect here,
Okay.
but it really is puzzling.
Okay. That's good. Again, I mean, the state of Florida does put money into beach programs. Y'all know that, right? If we go to Destin or Okaloosa Island or Miami Beach, you can look at, they run a whole program about how the state is going to allocate its revenues to communities in Florida to handle this problem. What they don't do, and the state doesn't 100% fund any project. They'll say, here's what we're able to do, and the rest of it is what are you going to do locally, and we have to partner. Our job is to be on the partner side of what your community will do in partnership with the state. So they won't figure this out for you. If you can imagine the state having to sort this out for every beach community in Florida would be a little daunting. So this is kind of the job of the town and the county, well, in this case not a town, but the county. And we work with the engineers to try to package the engineering proposal, the management strategy, and the financing. And we're big believers that the financing has to be done at the same time as the planning of the project. And here's what we say to the engineering folks. The cost of the project is a design parameter just like the wave height. In other words, engineers can develop fantastic plans, but if they can't be paid for and the community can't afford it, the plan isn't any good. And what we need to do is understand what the community's financial capacity is so that they can then design within your budget. So we take care of that side if we can, and then they're doing the technical piece. So it's a partnership between the engineering community, our firm, and the county, and you guys. Because ultimately, y'all know I'm a foreigner here. I'm a foreigner to all these beach towns I go to. I don't live in them. I was the head of the state coastal program for Texas. I've been working on beaches and shoreline issues for about 20 years, but I don't know your community, and that's why we're here to talk to you, because I can't develop a recommendation in a vacuum. It's really not up to me. I have certain skills and tools that I can bring to it, but I really need your help. So that's why we engage with you. So we don't miss the fact that there isn't one answer that I can take off the shelf. I have to work with you to do it. And we trust that. This is, by the way, a fantastic turnout. Really a fantastic turnout. So, yes, sir.
Peter, no disrespect, but it is a little disappointing to the ladies' conference that there is nobody here from Charlotte County. That was a long-winded answer that you just gave. You didn't answer the question. The question is, who hired you?
The county.
So the county hired
Yes.
you, or did coastal engineering
The
consultants?
county. I work for the county and work for you.
So you want a bid from the county
Yep.
to do the funding for
Yeah.
this project.
Correct. And I'll take responsibility for the fact that your county officials aren't here. There are a few county engineers here. There's 3 people from the county here. Raise your hand. 4.
Well, I understand. I did talk to Michael Pop
Right.
this afternoon, and he did say that I can't think
But
that's me. I'm supposed to be here tonight to also help support.
I'm going to take responsibility for this because I have asked all of the, when I work with counties and cities on shoreline projects, I ask them not to come. And I'll tell you why. I want to talk to you, and I want us to tell them what we would like to have happen. We're not here to lobby them. We are here to create. And if I learned this early on, if I have elected officials up here, it becomes a question of trying to convince an elected official to do something. I want to work on this with the owners, the people who are going to write the checks, and we will make a recommendation to them. And it gives us the space. Like the other rule I have with the clients I work with is, don't give me the answer. Don't tell me, here, Peter, this is the tax thing I want done, go sell it to them. Like, I don't do that. What I do is I'll say, I'm trying to figure out the problem, and I'm going to go ask your taxpayers how they want to handle it. And we have to build that answer. I don't have an answer. The county has not provided me with one. And if they did, I wouldn't take it. Because we have to create this together. So you won't see them, and sometimes they come anyway. But I really ask them not to. Not the staff folks, because they keep up with us. But the leadership of the community this is our space. As a consultant, working on trying to understand your approach and then bringing that forward for their consideration. It's not a top-down thing. It's from the bottom up. That's why there's lots of workshops.
Is this on?
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. Earlier in the season, we had a meeting here and the Army Corps of Engineers was here.
Okay.
They were talking about money. And then there's state money. Why would we know those funds before we talk about what we're spending? We need to know what's coming in.
Correct.
Would you be the one to find that information out, or you just want to know what we're going to fund and then figure it out later? It doesn't make any sense.
Well, actually, that is in the presentation tonight, because that's exactly how you do it. You got to find out what the outside sources are, and I'll tell you what it is when we get to that section. It's a couple slides down the road. But yes, ma'am, exactly. And as a consultant, our responsibility, look, the way I see it, and what we try to do is the last place we go is to the taxpayers. The first place we go is to if we had a federal partner here, we would be working very hard with that. I can tell you that the Corps has evaluated the program and they're not participating. And I have a slide about that. But the state is, and we know a lot about what the state's planning to do here, and I'll share it with you in a few slides here. Then we have what the county is going to contribute, right? That coalition, it's kind of in the order of how it should be. We need to understand the state, we need to understand the county, then the owners, and can we do something with visitor revenue? So we'll talk about all of those tonight, and as the plan develops, you'll see in the cost spreadsheet specific contributions from this. And there's work to do to make sure that we are getting that right. And I have a pretty decent start of that tonight. So your comment is right on. And so I promise I'll get to that. Yes, sir. Oh yeah, let me do this one and then.
Yeah, again, no disrespect, but I guess you're making a lot of commentary about wanting, the community to feel engaged.
Yeah.
And it feels a little bit preemptive to be talking about funding before having a community discussion, about whether we even want this as something for our community.
Okay.
Having a discussion of do we, as a community, want to go forward with this rather than do we as a community want to fund this.
True enough. Here's where we are with that. You have had under contract now for a couple of years, coastal engineering consultants as an engineer examining your beach. They've been doing that for a few years with lots of engagement in the community. The question of whether or not to act is really, I don't want to say not my job, but that's been a process of considerable effort that goes back at least a dozen years, if y'all remember back to 2001. We get brought in when the town, you have a coastal engineering report on the website. If you haven't looked at it, it's worth a read. This is the CEC report of March 2016. Since that report was issued, the county has retained the engineers to develop the final plan and permit. Okay, so the ball is moving down the road there. And you can catch up with them. It's not a done deal. There is no permit application. There's a lot of work that they're doing to get to that point. And so it may be that the community consensus is, you know what, we just don't think this is the thing we should do. That's between you as a community and your elected officials. They are working toward that, and what they're doing is preparing financially. So yes, am I assuming facts and evidence on that topic? You bet I am, and that's typically how it works. But I've learned that if there isn't a reasonably solid understanding in the community that action is required, it can fail in the financing picture. Because it may be a great plan and they may have spent a bunch of money to put it together, but if y'all don't want to fund it, it just doesn't happen. So there's a whole bunch of escape routes that are still. Now, I think what I understand is your community's been working together pretty hard. I'm staying over on the island at, say, Lily Beach, little place. I was talking to the manager of the property today. They're putting a $300,000 steel wall in front of their building. A bunch of people are pounding steel walls onto the beach here because it's getting desperate. It's getting to the point now where, boy, the ocean isn't going to stop moving here. And we either move out of the way or we try to respond. So I'm assuming, not necessarily that everybody thinks this is the right thing to do, but that the community is working towards seeing if they could put it together. That's true. I'm assuming that. And I think if we stopped and tried to debate whether we should act, I really think I'm not going to get to do what they've asked me to do. You have a beach advisory committee that's been very engaged in that planning process for years. Are there any beach advisory committee members here? You have a pretty good public engagement process on your program development over years now. So, a fair enough question, but yes, I'm assuming that the county is trying to actually submit this application, actually prepared to act. But there's a whole bunch of steps between here and there, still significant steps, actually. Yes, sir. Oh, wait, I think you had a question for Trey. Yeah, let me, oh,
We have a question here.
okay. All right.
Community decides to go ahead with funding a program like this. If the community decides to go ahead and fund a program such as this, do we have some input on how it's done? Because I went through the 109-page report that the state of the county or somebody put together. It's on their website.
Right.
And they're using an offshore dredging system.
They are.
To me, that looked very, very difficult to do and very expensive. Other communities, such as Naples, they've been able to use dump trucks and just put the sand on the beach, and then you can use geotextile
Sure.
forms like giant sausages filled with sand
Right?
that you can build dunes with, and then pile sand on top.
Okay.
And so it seems like the engineering of this is not as difficult as what they seem to make it out. But when you read the report, it's like, oh my God, all this stuff with the dredging. It
Yeah.
doesn't seem like the easiest and the best way when you have when you get sand and just put it on the compounds.
Well, I can tell you in talking to the engineers over the world that when you're trying to move lots of sand, we're going to be moving somewhere around 600,000 cubic yards of sand. A good dump truck holds 10 cubic yards. Well, depending on the size, but 16. So you take 600,000 and you divide it by 16. I can tell you that the cost of doing routine maintenance on this scale with trucks is not cheaper. It's like the difference between moving things by train, where you can move 10,000 cubic yards in an hour, or you can truck it. And believe me, that I can tell you that there are a variety of different approaches used on shoreline management and getting sand on the beach. The offshore source world is very common in Florida. It's very common in North Carolina. We need large volumes of sand over and over, every 8 years. And sometimes for a spot project, something short, maybe it's 1,000 feet, you might go inland to a mine, buy it, and hire a bunch of truck guys, haul it to the beach and pour it. But you're not going to do 1,000,000 cubic yards with a truck. And just think about the cost of the drivers and the fuel for every 16 yards. Armoring. And geotextiles are used, and I've worked with communities with geotextiles. So if anybody's familiar with this, he's right. It's a very good description. The big sausages, right? It's a sausage casing that's about huge. And it's an armoring philosophy, and there's legal reasons why that isn't going to be done on your shoreline. Now you have right. It has been done, and what you have now is emergency armoring projects going on in the county with steel walls. I understand. So, look, again, I will ask Michael Poff to come to a meeting so we can discuss shoreline management strategies. But that's what I can tell you. That's sure, and believe me, they are. Yes, let's move on. Okay, so I think it's not an engineer. Thank you. Okay, so we'll have another pause here. Let me just do a brief overview of what the county's erosion control program is. Okay, it's a county shoreline program. It's a comprehensive effort. Manage and maintain the county's beach and shoreline assets. It consists of these three components: the Manasota Key Beach Nourishment Program, which is under design and permitting now, the Stump Pass Management and Maintenance Program, which is under design and permitting, which has already been bid actually, and placement on Don Pedro Night Island as well. There's three parts to it. Just a quick review. The Stump Pass project is going to be put on a 4-year dredging cycle. Every 4 years, they're going to clean the channel out. It's going to produce about 200,000 cubic yards every 4 years, which is a good amount of sand, but not enough to offset the erosion on your beaches. That planned sand is placed north and south of the pass. I think most of you are familiar with that. It happens now. And this is going to begin next year. It's been bid out, as you know. It also includes the bid that's been put out already, you may have heard about it, the terminal groin on the north side of the pass. And this is what's called a permeable groin that'll be placed there that will reduce the sand getting into the pass. It will also help the erosion just updrift. That's also looking at next year, possibly. And it's a one-time project. Once that's built, it'll be there, and we aren't going to pay for that again. That's the Stump Pass Management Project, roughly speaking. On Don Pedro Night Island, there's what's called the South Beach Fill. Every 8 years, we're going to be putting sand on this beach, about 260,000 cubic yards of sand from an offshore source. There isn't enough sand in the pass or along the shoreline for us. We've got to go offshore, and it's quite commonly done. The Don Pedro Night Placement Project is part of the Manasota Key project. So just think of this. When they spend the money to send a dredge offshore to suck sand up off the bottom and pump it to the island, they're going to put it on both sides with one contract and one design. And that's a good way to do it. It saves you money. The South Fill volume is not under development. They're looking at 260,000. And it will be added, of course, to what's coming out of the pass. The pass is going to provide some sand. It's great. And that's the least expensive sand. There just isn't enough of it. And this project is eligible for state cost sharing, as is the Stump Pass project. Manasota Key is the bigger one. The initial beach nourishment, which is in design right now with Michael Poff and CEC, about 570,000 cubic yards. It has a one-time hard bottom mitigation. Y'all heard that term floating around? Okay. You know, right off the beach here, there are some limestone outcrops along this beach. And when those are exposed, when you bury them with sand, we're going to cover that with the beach. And what the state requires is for us to mitigate or recreate that hard bottom offshore. In other words, what we do, and I worked on the permit for Sarasota County on this, negotiated the hard bottom mitigation. They're going to go get some rocks from a quarry and they're going to take them out and put them in the ocean. And they're going to have this substrate available. That's not a county desire. That is a state requirement that when we bury this hard bottom, which has habitat value, we have to replicate it. And so that once we replicate that one time, when we come back and fill the beach and bury it again, we don't have to put any more out there. We do it one time. Notice that we have here the design and permitting, the monitoring, the operation and maintenance, and this list of costs are the only things we're going to pay for with this program in some sort of trust account that y'all are comfortable with. Every 8 years after this initial project, they're going to put sand on the beach because the sand doesn't stay. And the volume is going to be around 428,000 yards. So it's less the second time. And think of it this way. The beach is like a gas tank, and right now, the beach on Manasota Key is on E. It's below E in the gas tank. The water is undermining houses and structures already. It's empty. We're going to fill the tank up, and they're going to refill it before it gets back to E. They'll be putting sand on the beach in lesser volumes in the future. And because good coastal engineering practice isn't to let it all go back to zero, not to go back to E. We're going to fill the tank at about half full, or a little more than half full, or a little less than half full. Okay, so what you'll see is the cost of managing your shoreline starts higher and gets a little bit lower over time because you're going to keep the sand you have on the beach will still be there. We're not going to replace it every time. Does that help? And this project is eligible for state cost sharing. So the comment about how much that is, we'll kind of come up to that. So a little bit more about the Manasota Key project. It's about 10,000 feet long. Actually, this has since been updated. It's 570,000. There's about 6 acres of hard bottom we have to fix, mitigate for, replace. It's around $21 million. I apologize. This slide has been updated, and I have the wrong one. This would actually be 8 years, and this is the right time. Not 2019, the first project, 2027, 8 years later. The second one, and it will repeat again. And the cost drops by a third. Okay? And if we wanted to work through the details of the designs and the technical stuff, I can ask Michael, and maybe we could add a section, maybe right before the financing section, to go through details of design for anybody who's interested in that. So, before we move on, any questions on the rough outline of the plan? So basically, manage the path, sand on Manasota, sand on Don Pedro Night.
First of all, I just want to say thank you for coming out and trying to speak with everyone on behalf of your consulting group.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Somebody coming out to talk to us.
Great.
Am I to understand that, first of all, you are the person to talk to, you're the middleman, as you said, between the engineering? Are you also the middleman between just about everything else about this project?
The non-technical stuff, yes.
Yes, okay, great.
Generally speaking, all of the things that impact how you guys feel about this, other than me doing the mathematics of the engineering.
I
Yes.
just want to make sure I'm talking to the
You're
right
right.
person.
I'll do my best.
So I guess my question is, what is your consulting group going to do or recommend to assist with the environmental and the societal issues associated with this climate nourishment program? I always ask this first one because I have been doing a little bit of research into your past projects in Florida.
Okay.
And I noticed that there are, particularly in the bar, there's a $6 million cost to re-nourish the beach, that they've seen that their costs have indeed gone up.
Right.
I'm not saying that's your fault.
It's okay.
I also noticed that there are issues in Destin as well in terms of access. So I want to know what your consulting group do to deal with these issues within the wider community after you're done with the entire project.
Well, it's a good question because I'll tell you specifically the access issues will be part of the discussion for financing. One of the things we all generally should be aware of, when the state is deciding how much money to give you for your projects, one of the key considerations in their contribution is access. In the city of Destin, there's very little public access in that community. The state said, we'll give you 4% of your cost. The state will do up to 50%. The state says to the city, tell you what, with what you have right now for access, we'll give you 4%. But if you do these three things, new access ways, parking, we'll increase the percentage and you can get more money. The town and the taxpayers decided, that's okay, we'll just pay for it. We won't take the state help. I, as a finance consultant, advise my clients all the time, please think about how you can get more money from the state. And yes, it's dependent on access, and I'm a believer in that because it makes it cheaper for all of you. But that's a value judgment of the community. And again, why we have to discover what you would like to do. There are options. Let me just jump ahead. The state of Florida, with your existing access now, is looking at giving you 39% of the cost of the project. That's not bad. I'm pretty happy with that. I think you could get more, but it would require you to do access improvements. And whether, as a community, you want to do that is up to you. So I would have liked to have seen Destin do better on access because it cost the taxpayers a lot of money not to do it, but that was the choice they made. Now, Okaloosa Island next door did maximize their state revenue. That was just a different decision. So the social environmental implications and things, there's a lot of discussion about the environmental implications of beach nourishment. That is a little bit outside our scope, but not entirely, because if it's not a project you believe in, you're not going to support paying for it. So sometimes we have to try to do our best to understand the issues, the questions, and it will be a topic in the permitting process. Very specifically, the mitigation impact, the hard bottom impact in Sarasota County, when I worked on the Venice Beach project, which had a big mitigation, was an extensive and exhaustive environmental negotiation in the permit with the state. That's going to happen in your project. So it is something that you can participate in the DEP review. There'll be a draft permit, there'll be hearings on that. Again, a little bit outside of what we're trying to do, but I'm willing to try to understand the concerns and bring them forward to the county or to the state. If that helps, Shep. Yes, ma'am, I'll do this one and then yours, okay?
When you say Manasota Beach project, is this all of Charlotte County?
Yes.
All the way to the county line?
It starts at the North County line and comes past the state park. There's maps in the document. I will put one in the next one. But 10,000 feet, it's about 2 miles. It doesn't go all, it's so, on Manasota Key, it starts at the Sarasota County line and comes south. Yeah. Does that help? And I should have a map. I had one in the last workshop. But yes, anybody, a question over here? And then I'll come to yours. This is working out very well from my standpoint, y'all. I'm glad we're getting to pause and talk here.
No. And thank you for coming.
Yes, ma'am.
Everybody. I was expecting more people today too. My biggest problem with this whole project is we need certain questions answered
Okay.
before we can say, okay, we're willing to pay. Before we get the final word from the state and how much percent they're willing to
Correct.
go in. We need to know the access plan.
Right.
I really, we live in a community, and so do we want public people coming into
Right.
our property? There's liability issues there.
There are. So here's what I think we should do together. And I would ask this as a favor. You don't have to go online to type this up. If you would tonight, and we go to Lynn and say, here are the 4 things I want to know. So when you guys come back in January, there better be some stuff about this because this is what I want to. These are the concerns that I have. It's kind of why we space the workshops out, and it's kind of why there's more than one, because it takes time to sort out. What we're going to try to do is be responsive to the concerns in the community as we go through the process and do the work of that. And I may not be able to answer, chances are, all of the questions or concerns tonight, but what we try to do is make a commitment to you that we will do our best to make sense of that. And believe me, when you say, I need to know what the state share is, I need to know what the state share is, and I really need to know if it's reliable. And we're on the same page. There are certain things we have to know before we can really finish this effort. So I'll tell you what we know right now, and then as we, again, the permit application expected in April from the engineers to the state, and then it's going to go through some months of work, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that the project's tend to get more definitive, but it takes the process along to get it nailed down. But in April, you're going to have a pretty solid idea here, and so will we. That's why our report coincides with their application. I want to see that design. I want to know what the access is. I need to know that. And we do, as a group, to understand how to finance this. I can tell you right now that the state share, based on existing accesses, not anything new, is at 39%, and probably we can get it a little over 40%. There'll be some discussion. That's a good start. I'm pretty happy with that. That's a good thing. Okay, Tyler, if you would, up here. Man, I have one up here for instance, has hand up, and then we'll come back to you, and then we're going to go to the next section. We'll do 2 more questions, and we'll have a couple more pauses too. So stay with me. Hello.
My name is Andy Wing, and I'm a resident of Manasota Key.
Yes, sir.
First of all, the Board of County Commissioners in November of last year created the Beach Minority MSTU. Their plan is to establish a millage rate for that MSTU
Right.
in April of 2017.
Right.
Now, the boundaries for that MSTU are specifically for Manasota Key and Charlotte County and Sandpiper Key. The MSTU for Stump Pass is everything from the Bianca River all the way to the Sarasota County line. And the county is working at this time, administration, of perhaps being able to change the definition
Correct.
of that MSTU, which could include some beach renourishment.
Correct.
Now, the Board of County Commissioners have also donated, when I donated, they'll get it back. Groups, they have put in $1.5 million of restore money to keep the beach renourishment program moving forward with coastal engineering. So that money has already been spent. So there is a lot that is going on. And then as far as the beach renourishment here, the estimate on that right now stands at about $7 million.
Okay.
And the other thing is that they really have not let the contract Stump Pass record.
No, they have not. I understand that. And it's being yeah. So Andy, we've had a chance to meet Andy and get to know Andy a little bit, and one of the many very knowledgeable and smart people in the community, which is why these things help us a lot. And we're looking forward to engaging with folks. But Andy's quite right in terms of there is some historic efforts underway here. What we want to do as a group, as on behalf of the the taxpayers is to speak to the county about these MSBs and Ts and their design and their rates and things. We want to say something timely to that. And that's what this process is for us to think it through and to really, if it's going to take us some work here, January and February, we're going to be working hard on tax stuff. So I know it can be hard, but I really ask you to stick with this process. There's a bunch of math in it. It's not over your head. It's not something you can't understand and figure out. You absolutely can, and we'll make it as easy as possible to figure out what you think should happen so that we're giving the county, here's how we think this should go forward. So the decisions aren't made, but they're in motion, and we're trying to catch up with that process. We're trying to steer that process on. And look, it's the hard part for me is always, I know that there's a lot of people who care about this who don't get to come to every meeting. So we really try to go slow and have repeated opportunities and catch up with y'all and work with you. So I'm going to take one more question, then we're going to jump forward to the next step.
Good evening. I'm Kimberly Cohen. Got old, so it's hard to hear me.
All right.
Thank you for all your efforts so far. For my discussions with people on the key, I think most of the people that I've talked to are in favor of future nourishment that has areas that has concerns about needing questions answered. And specifically, there's concern about public access.
Yes, ma'am.
Two things. What's the maximum amount that the state will contribute?
Okay.
For, if we have the maximum public access.
Okay.
And from your experience, what are some creative options in order to increase our percent without.
Right. Okay, the answer is, so for those of you online, this is a great question. It has to do with the state share, the maximum amount of money that the state will contribute to your project. The answer to that is 50%, and you're at 39 right now with your existing rated access. Are there some things that you can do to go up a little bit? We think there are, but we want to bring those to you guys for your review and consideration, and we'll do that at the January meeting. There is a section in the report from March that's online, an engineering report about the topic, and it includes all of the factors that the state uses to determine your percentage, and there's some stuff you can learn there if you want, but it's probably more than you want to know. But there are some things that you can do, and sometimes it's as simple as having a 5-foot pathway or an easement from a public road to the beach, and sometimes with parking associated with it or not. Okay, and Destin had this. They had a few pathways down to the beach, but the hotels didn't want a whole bunch of folks on the beach. And the hotel said, you know what, we'll pay the extra. Don't add any more parking there. We're fine. And those are the kind of trade-offs that really are about your community and not up to me. But I can't give you a specific answer like what is the list of things you can do, but in January I think we will. We'll have some thoughts. If you did X, Y, Z, this is how your percentage could change. So write that one down, and we won't forget to come back to you on that. Does that help a little bit? So let's go through the next section, about 5 slides in this section, and this really is sort of a why beach nourishment may be the right thing to do, but this is obviously not my choice either, but I think it's the right thing. This is why I think financing beach projects is difficult, is because when you think about the beach, it is both a public space, it's sort of a park, right? It is the most visited, it's not a park officially, visited park in this county by far. It protects the public infrastructure, it does things for government investment, roads and things. It is a foundation of the tourism economy in these beach communities. They're all a little bit different. We know that people come to the beach. We know that about 65% of the bed tax revenues in this county come from the shoreline area. The tourists come to the shoreline, come to Inglewood area for boating and beaches and things. It drives the real estate market. You take a house that you put on the beach that might cost $800,000, you move it 10 miles inland and it's not $800,000. We all know that. It expands the tax base. It increases public revenue. The beach is a public asset. And what that means to me is, where's the public investment to go with that? Right? But it's not just a public asset, it's also a private asset or benefit because it protects people's homes. It increases the property values individually. It enhances recreation. It's a spiritual space for you as a person. It's a great place to be. And so where is the contribution from the private beneficiaries, right? You see why that coalition slide is what we're talking about. We have to mix the public and the private contributions in a way that is fair. So here's what I've learned. Successful strategies for beach nourishment reflect the public and the private nature of the shoreline, both. If we as a group of people said, you know what, the beach is nothing to me as an owner, it's all public, we want the state, the feds, the county to write the check. Forget it, it ain't anything to do with me. That argument doesn't win. If on the flip side, if the community at large, or the state, or the county, or the public interest say to the loaners, it has no public benefit at all, this is just for your house, you pay for it. Also doesn't work. That will fail. Our job is to figure out the balance of contribution to reflect the interests. It's a little tricky. There's a lot of ways to slice and understand this, but it's about both. And that's why we have to have this coalition of contributors. What the underlying belief is here, if there's a bias, this is the bias of the process, it's my personal bias, and also is a professional bias, is that we believe healthy, well-managed beaches and shorelines and passes contribute to a healthy economy. We believe boaters and people buy property down here because the beach is in good shape, the waterways work, that kind of thing. We believe stable beaches help create stable economies, and in order to be stable financially, we got to think about 30 years, we need stable revenues, and we better make sure that if we lose what we pay for, that we've got coverage. So that's the slide again. We're going to try to figure this out. The state, the county, the owners, the visitors, how do we put that together? And these pieces are going to be shaped by us, the people who participate. We're going to put it on the table for you. It's going to be open. It ain't about me figuring it out in Austin. So on the federal funds, the operating assumption of this program we're about to do is that you're not going to get any money from the Corps of Engineers, and they've evaluated your program and project. Look, this is happening all over the country. Nobody's getting new federal money for shorelines, by and large. Unless you live in New Jersey and you have the hurricane money. The process of getting, I love the federal investments, believe me. Congress has been tightening down on new project starts, shoreline management programs all over the United States. My good friends in Wilmington, North Carolina have had 50 years of federal investment. The Corps just told them, sorry, game's over, no more. It all happens through congressional action. It's not something we can call a congressman or talk somebody into. There's a very specific process through it's the Water Resources Development Act. There's a whole bunch of, it takes 3 acts of Congress to get a federal project. We're not going to get that. I'm not going to tell anybody don't try. I have Surf City, North Carolina has put together their local funding strategy and has been investing in federal partnership for 15 years waiting for the Corps to give them a project. They've spent millions of dollars and they're waiting. The towns next to them gave that up and built their beaches and fixed them themselves because the Corps is not going to come through. I'm not going to say you're going to try. I'm going to tell you it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen in the next couple of years. If we started right now and we had everybody on board, it would take you 10 years to get one of these things. So the operating assumption of the plan is there's no federal funding, and I don't think we're being pessimistic, we're being realistic. Okay, we're going to start talking about the costs now, but before we do that, comments and questions at this stage. We'll do that one in the back, and then yours up second, okay? And is there anyone over here who had one?
Thank you. In the last meeting, you were talking about how we should look at the beach the same way the county looks at things like the stadium and different things, and I've been kind of paying attention to the funding, the air show for $80,000, the boat races for $350,000. you start multiplying those by 8 years, and they're coming up into a
It's
few $1 million.
It's real money.
I'm wondering if that kind of real money will be on the website, so we'll be able to see some of the other things that are county funds that are more
Okay.
county-wide and not just beach related to.
So Lily, and I don't fully understand the sources of revenues for that, but I think we can learn it, and I'm pretty sure it's probably bed tax revenues. Does anybody know here, by and large? I know the stadium is underwritten by bed tax revenues from the county. Certain economic investments are done that way. I will tell you my personal opinion. I think the county needs to invest more in bed taxes on the beach. That is what I think we have to do. Now, I'm going to need y'all's help to do our part to do that, but that's what I think is fair. And I'll tell you the places we've put together successful strategies, there is a solid cornerstone there. And it works because it's driven by the economy, it's tied to economics, and it's from the visitors, and it's not from the taxpayers. We need to expand the base. The coalition, we got to figure that out. And the way we can be persuasive is that the group of owners are willing to come to the table to a certain extent in a way that's fair, because we want the broad base. That's my personal view. I can't tell you I can convince the county of this, right? I'm a guy from Austin. What the heck? What am I going to listen to me? But they can listen to the community, and they can listen to us. We speak well here. So looking at how bed tax revenues are expended is a fair question. And in the communities I work in, I let the folks know, look, I'm going to go talk to people about paying taxes here. It's important that I'm able to talk to them honestly about what's going on. So just know, I'm going to look at the budget, and I'm going to talk to them about what you're doing. I try to do that because I think you have a right to know. And that's kind of where we're coming, and that's an important, this is, in my mind, one of the big work items for me between now and January is to get a handle on that better. And we're kind of dipping into that. We're starting to learn through that. And we're not quite all the way there, but we'll be back with you on that. It's a good question. Who's got the mic? I think. Hey, I was hoping the folks online, I'm not repeating these questions, but no one's commented and said, we don't know. So, yes, ma'am.
Has anyone looked into the financial gains of having the beach available with the businesses here in town? They're not beachfront property owners, but they do gain a lot of money from the beach and all the people that come.
You bet they do. It's the truth. We know.
Could they be here tonight so they can help us with this?
Well, I think in putting together these and other communities, the relationship between beach operating or beach-oriented businesses, that clearly how their business goes is a function of how the beach is working and whether people are coming to the shoreline. We've seen communities that have really degraded beaches that lose visitorship, because when you have folks who can go rent a beach house, there's places that they probably have historically gone, which they love, but when you can't put your grandkid in your hand and walk onto the beach and you're in the water, they're going to go rent somewhere else, and there's a lot of beach towns in Florida, and there's a bunch of them in the Southeast and the Gulf Coast. So we know that quality beaches mean economic activity and contribute to business profit. In some of the financing plans we've done, there's been assessments to reflect that. And it's in cases where we have businesses on the beachfront. That's how it's happened in the past with me for that. But so we need to think about that. That's a complex question, I can tell you. There's not an easy answer. So I'm going to ask Lily to put that one. What about businesses? And we're not trying to go after businesses. What we're trying to do is be fair-minded about the benefits that accrue from good beach management. So I don't know where we're going to come out there, but why don't we open that door as we go down the line here? It's a good door. Yes, ma'am.
We're going to try to get the county to participate in funding this through taxation also, because I think everybody in our county benefits from the beaches.
Yeah, me too.
And I know a lot of people that come to Inglewood can't afford to buy on Manasota.
Yeah.
But they buy in the outskirts,
Right.
Rotunda, East Inglewood,
Right.
all the properties in Gulf
Right.
Coast.
Yeah.
And they all come to our beaches.
Yeah.
627,000 people came through our,
Yeah.
our bridge
yeah.
this year.
With the counting, the traffic count.
Yes, the
Yeah.
traffic
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that we put in. And
Yeah.
I think that each one of those persons should be funding along with
Yeah.
us.
So
Live on the beach.
you're reflecting my personal view right there. I'm not going to stand in front of you and tell you that I can make that happen. I can tell you that the notion of that is consistent with how I think this needs to be done and what is fair. You have a county that actually is a pretty good player here. I have had counties that have declared to us as the funding consultant and to the beach community, island communities are going, happy to help you on your beach thing, we're happy to get the permit for you, we'll bid it out, but we are not paying a dime. I've actually had counties say, go ahead, see if the people want to pay for it, we're happy to let them do it, we aren't going to pay. I've also had counties who take a very proactive role in participating in this financially, and I like that better. Okay, now for me to, here's what I'm going to tell you how the conversation plays out. If I go talk to the people in Punta Gorda and say, guess what, this is a great project, does lots of stuff, good for the economy, all the stuff we know, and y'all need to pay, and they say, well, what about the people who live there and own it? And I said, well, that's because this is a public benefit. We want the public over there. You know what they're going to say to me? Oh, you mean they're not doing it? I'm not doing it. This is how it works. We have got to work together. We have to do what's our part fairly, and we want them to come to the table as well. And that happens when we as a group of community, see why this is a conversation here, and no offense to the county commissioners, this is a conversation for y'all as owners and taxpayers. And we want to think about this. But I can tell you that I believe the county needs to do more. I can tell you that. Can I make that happen? I'm not magical here. I'm a paid consultant, but I'm with you on the idea.
How do we make it happen?
Well, we got to be smart. Let's see what we can do. We got to work together. And we have to have something in our pocket. Because if I walk over to the rotunda and I say, hey, folks over there, beach is great. We all know you come down here. We need you to pay. They're going to say, am I paying more than the guy who's got the house on the beach? Well, no, you're paying the same. They're going to go, really? I'm paying the same? He's there. He decided to live. Where is he? You see what I'm saying? We have to figure this out. I think we can. Yes, we can. We've done tiers. I like tiers. We're going to go through the process of looking at a lot of different options with you. And let's see what we can do. Let's see what we can do. Yeah. Right. The MSB probably, I'll show you. I'll show it to you what I'm thinking. I'll show you the initial idea so you can think about it for a month and tell me what you think. Other questions, and then we're going to move on. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Peter, I know that environmental issues are not your focus here. I understand that. I want to bring you back to the hard bottom mitigation. Certainly the cost of that.
Yeah.
Certainly in your arena.
It's a big deal.
Yeah, it's
a big deal financially.
My specific question would be, what is the projected cost of that? My background is I'm a marine scientist at Florida Gulf Coast University. I also grew up here.
Yeah.
Manasota.
You and I have a marine biology degree, and I am from a science background as well, and have an environmental law and regulatory background. So
Peter, I've been listening to you a lot about talking about quality beaches.
Yeah.
And from my understanding, we may have some other people here that what makes, in my mind, our beaches here pretty special, but not just the amount of sand we have there, but the fact that we have lots of shells, we have excellent fishing,
yeah.
And that, as somebody who actually understands the ecology, is required to have a healthy seafloor.
Yeah.
You cannot have the shells, you cannot have the fossil sharks, you cannot have the fishing if you don't have an ecosystem to support it.
Indeed.
Which is definitely hurt by you know.
Can be. And so we're talking about water quality, turbidity impacts. We're talking about bearing accessible organisms on exposed rock outcrops. We're talking about the benthic communities that support nearshore fisheries. There's a whole bunch of stuff there. And I can tell you, I'm not trying to ignore it. I wouldn't mind having a special side session on it and see if we can get somebody. But I can tell you that in my experience in working with DEP, we're going to go the gauntlet on those issues. The state is very particular about this stuff, and their scientists are going to talk to, in the permitting process, about the environmental implications of the design. Now, there's a wide variety of opinion here about whether it has long-term effects, and there's various views from different scientists, but I can tell you it's not going to be overlooked, because if you look at the DEP regulatory program, you will see the standards that are there. And you know, Florida nourishes a lot of beaches, so we kind of know what the state does, but I can tell you when we did the Venice project and the hard bottom. Did? Well, yeah. Well, it takes, you bet it does. You bet it does. Look, it may be that, okay, we're going to move on. Funding, let's go to funding. Yeah, because, okay, you're with me? Stick with me now. Estimated project costs. Folks, I'm going to tell you the first thing when I talked to Mike Pott, and I said, Michael, I need this 30-year projection. You need numbers. My folks are going to ask me how much it's going to cost. And he said, Peter, if you put this out there, don't tell them this is a conceptual, rough idea, because they're working their butts off to get the project design and evaluate the economics. They're not done. These are conceptual estimates. I'm not expecting you to be able to read this. You can when you look at it online. The bottom line is on the side. This is the 30-year Stone Pass Management Program cost. And everybody take a deep breath, because this is going to feel scary, but it's not as bad as you think when we're done. Okay? Stone Pass 30-year management. Design and permitting up there is the $304,000 in 30 years. It's less than 1% of the cost. Not a lot. The construction cost $38 million. Wow, that's a big number. Over 30 years. About 80% of the cost of it is in the construction. The monitoring protocol, which is demanded by the state, how it's done, how frequently, costs money. It's 15%, right at 16, almost $8 million in operation and maintenance, which is one of the things you have to do to make sure your beach outputs, keep an eye on it, is 3%. Okay, that's one. The chart here on the side, you can't read, but when we get deeper into the economics, I'm going to hand it out, but when you look at this on your computer, you'll be able to read it. That's Stone Pass. Allocation of the cost is just a little pie chart. Construction is the orange. The monitoring is the green. Operation and maintenance. So it gives you a feeling for when you're talking about the projects we're trying to fund, we're talking about a construction program here. There's other stuff, but it's small. Not minuscule, but okay. Manasota key. Get ready to take a deep breath. This will scare you. 30-year chart, same way. When did expenditures occur? That's what the chart is. Again, when you look at it on your computer, you can read it. Here's the bottom line. Design and permitting, $1.3 million over 30 years. Okay, remember. Construction, $68 million. Oof. You just stop and go, wow, are we nuts or what? We're not. Monitoring $1 million, operation and maintenance, $72 million. Average annual cost, $2.4 million. That's real money, in my opinion. Here's the pie chart for that one. Mostly construction, right? There are costs of managing these projects and designing them and permitting and monitoring the heck out of them. But we're really talking about pump and sand. Don Pedro Night Island. It's a smaller fill and there's smaller volume. $139,000, less than about 1/3%, $40 million in construction costs. That's a big number. Monitoring, operation, and maintenance, $42 million rough estimate. Without killing people. How do I talk to the community about whether they can handle that or not? Pie chart again, basically the red is the construction. Here's the overall. And this is where things start to get a little bit better. These are the design and permitting costs for each of the three components of the program, the construction costs, monitoring. Look at the numbers, $1.7 million for the program, design and permitting. Take a breath, $147 million, my gosh. That's a big number. Monitoring around $10 million, $4 million, $163 million. $163 million. That people usually are happy. But look, that's a 30-year cost. The average cost per year is $5.4 million. There's your state share, 39%, what the state is telling us they're willing to do right now. That's $2 million a year. Liking that. Can I find a way to put together a $3.3 million funding program in a county like this with this shoreline and this economics? I'm hoping. And get this. The state of Florida, this is kind of the conceptual annual revenue need. Start thinking about this in taxing years. 2.2 million a year roughly. Now, there's 2.2. Local funds 3. You've got $1 million, $2 billion in your account right now, y'all. You need $2 million bucks. Can we do this with the coalition, with the county, the Manasota folks, the Don Pedro Knight folks, with the West County area? Can we do? I think we can do that. Let me tell you, I've had harder ones than that. We can do this. I think we can do it. Now, this is where we're starting in terms of what we know from the engineers and estimates and what the state is telling us right now. I'm not picking the state share out of the air. It is based on the discussions that are ongoing now, and the state has been cautioning on the development of your program already. We're not from outer space here. That, my friends, I believe if we work together and we figure out how to do this fairly amongst each other, from the beachfront people to the off beach to the West County to the county, we can do that. I don't know what the answer is, but I'm pretty sure we can do that. And that's where I'm headed. That's why I hate to be optimistic about this because this stuff is not easy. But I look at that and all the ones I've done, and I say, oh, I've done those. I've done that before with less horsepower than y'all have available to you. So I'm thinking we could do it. I don't know how, but we're looking at starting to work in January about how to do this together. Okay, let me see if there's one more slide. And then we're going to do questions. The only thing this thing does, and this is where things get a little bit tricky for us as consultants, we've got to figure out. When I talk about the annual cost of something, the costs are not the same every year. This is the cost along the bottom is 30 years of stuff. And notice that every 8 years, we're spending a boatload of money, right? Because we're nourishing the return an 8-year cycle. And these little bumps are the stump pass maintenance. So when we put the plan together, we have to account for the fact that the funds are not actually even. But we know what the magnitude of things is, and there are ways to smooth that out. But one of the complicated things we'll sort out after we figure out how to put together the money is how to even out the revenue stream to pay the bill as it goes along. Okay? And what you don't want to do is take this big old spike and borrow 20 years of debt and try to pay that off over 20 years and then get another product on top of it. We're not going to do that. We don't get to do that because that's ridiculous and not smart. And so there's some constraints on it. Okay? All right, let's talk about the costs. What do y'all want to say? Tell me what you think.
And maybe being a devil's advocate, how potential is the state funding
seems like a pretty perfect.
It darn sure is, because we're betting on it, aren't we? We're going to bet on this thing. And it is one of the things, depending on your life and how you deal with uncertainty in your own life about stuff like this. Here's what we all know. It is beyond our control, the control of any of us. It's beyond the control of the county. It has to do with bigger forces and bigger people than us. And they can decide to change the world. And now what I can tell you is but that is true whether the county is talking about state road funding, or water system funding, or all the kinds of things that government spends money on over time. We are no better or worse off than any other long-term relationship with another government entity, and the state has a long track record here that we can look at. One of the great things you have in Florida, which I don't have in Texas or in North Carolina when I work, is that every county in this state is pretty darn a coastal county. Not everybody knows what the beaches are about, and because the state has a long coastline and it's not wide. When you're in Texas, and I'm talking about shoreline management in Texas, and I'm talking to somebody in Dallas or Amarillo that are 800 miles away, they don't care. The elected officials don't care. They're worried about other things. In this state, you've got a motivated legislature with a good track record. So the question you're asking for me, the way I look at that question is, should we build in a contingency if the state doesn't come through? And what is the backup strategy? Tough nut to crack, good planning idea though. I don't know how to do that in this one yet, but I think we've got a few thoughts. Okay, but we are allowed as a group of people and as a community and as a county to make reasoned assumptions about what the state is going to do into the future. And even though I cannot promise you, because I don't know the future, and I'm not the governor, or I'm not the head of the Senate or the House, I can make, are we out of our minds in thinking the state's going to do this, or can we look at the track record and the politics and the investment the state has made and the understanding of the state leadership? I think you're pretty good. You're better than what in Texas. I always feel very uncomfortable about the state share because most of the legislators don't live near a beach and probably don't care about it. But almost every elected official in this state thinks about tourism and shorelines and beaches. So that's all. I think we have to make an assumption there, and maybe we should build in a backup plan. Let's talk about it. Yes.
Yes, I think everybody is real happy with what you're trying to do for all of us. And you mentioned some things tonight that really stick out to me. You said we need wide participation, just like many of the people in this room have said.
Yeah.
And that we need to be fair to everybody. I think your suggestion of having a tiered program to pay for this is exactly what we have to do. Yesterday morning, I called the Charlotte County tax collector and I asked the question, how many people have property and pay taxes in Charlotte County? The answer was, after they looked it up, 211,569 people pay taxes.
Wow.
Now, I know we have a very complicated system, but I think everybody in the county agrees, as you have said before, that everybody benefits. The young woman in the back said, all the people in Salt Lake or Port Charlotte, everybody uses the beach. How simple would this be? Could we form an SBT?
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
An SDU
Yeah.
in the entire county, knowing that some people on the beach are going to pay more and things like that. If everybody paid $20 a year, which is exactly 5 cents a day, we would raise $4.2 million a year.
It's a pretty good number.
It's a solution that would be so simple, and I don't mean to say it would hurt nobody. You're talking about $20 a year.
Yeah.
211,569.
That's a really good question you asked them, by the way. That's one kind of question I would ask them too. I don't know the answer if we can do that. I don't know. There's something to it, and here's what I've learned. I'm going to go back to, let me go way up here because this looks like kind of the throwaway slide. But it's not, because it underpins how people think and act and how the politics and the power in these issues works. What you're making an argument for, and I don't think it's a bad one, I'll tell you what. I worked with a county, city, Surf City, North Carolina, that had an island community and a whole bunch of it within the city boundary on the mainland. Right? There was a huge distinction of interest between the beachfront people, the off-beach people, and the mainland people. That town created one tax rate for everybody in the town and adopted it unanimously to strong support from the community. There is such a thing as what you're talking about, and it has to do with the understanding of the values of the community. You see why we have to find it? I don't know what this community is going to decide on something like that, but I have seen it done. I'll also tell you that the tax rate increase that was put in place there was a lot bigger than what you're talking about. It was about 25%. Can you believe that? Their beach was that important economically, and the people in the town understood it that well that they said, you know what, I'll pay because it's better than letting it go to heck. I've also had communities that are highly tiered. Bald Head Island, North Carolina is massively funded off the front. Different values, different community. What I can tell you is, I don't know, we got to find it. I don't know the answer to it, but I can tell you that we cannot ignore is that it is a reasonable thing for someone in Punta Gorda to say, if I'm paying the same thing as that guy, who bought the house, who's close to losing it, I can't see that as being fair. And there are more of them. Think about this. There are more people off the beach than on the beach or off the island than on the island. The politics generally demand something a little bit different. We have to look at this seriously. Because the one thing I've learned is nobody really wants to raise their taxes to pay. Nobody. The answer is generally, at the outset, nobody wants to do this. And getting to a point where you understand that the investment makes sense to your community and to you personally is an important step. And here's what I've learned. This is what I tell folks. If we can't figure out a way to convince the people whose houses are directly in the way of this erosion to contribute to this, I can't go across the bridge. If you're not doing it, they don't want to do it either. And they don't want to do it 10 times more than you don't want to do it. And they're not going to do it unless you're in the picture in a responsible way. That's typically how it works. Yeah. Should be fair. I'm with you. That's my belief too. I'm with that. We got to figure out how to do that. Yes, ma'am. Try to do the mic, would you? Oh, yeah, okay. How many people on the island?
Here's what I've been telling you, because I tried to get my taxes low a few years ago.
Okay.
I was paying $3,000 and I'm one house off the beach.
Okay.
The folks on the other side of the road, staying in condominium because we're villas.
Right.
They were paying $1,500. I did the whole research,
Wow.
the whole 39
Big difference.
So we're already,
Yeah.
the guy that is in front of me is paying $10,000
I get you.
in taxes. So we're already been paying maybe 19 years.
I know what you're saying.
So
It's
we're
the
already
truth.
paying more than the rest of the county.
Right. So for those of you online, and this is a comment worth repeating, not that the other ones were, but I keep forgetting to say this to the folks online, and this is an argument that comes up all the time, which is, hey, you know what? If you look at the property values, my contribution, because the shorefront houses are worth considerably more, mean I contribute more in taxes. This is the truth. Now, there's a lot of ways that that gets cut, and a lot of ways that gets played out. Sometimes in barrier island communities, a beachfront home and a waterfront home on the backside with a dock and a Gulf outlet can be as much or more depending on what the people want in their life. You want a boat or... So it's not always true, but it is generally the case. The other thing is that an MSBU is a fee, not dependent on value. So one of the reasons I like MSBUs is because it doesn't punish high-value properties. It's done on, and I'm about to go through, I'll show you one. It's a little bit different. MSTUs are property tax-based. Okay, so this is another one of the great issues as we work to put this together fairly, is to understand the economics of the community, and that is a very important consideration. But I will tell you that there's going to be folks who have property on Lemon Bay on the mainland with great docks and access to Stump Pass, whose values are going to be comparable to a beachfront house. It's really hard to generalize this, okay? So I know I'm keeping you late. I've got a few more things. I'm going to show you an example of what I'm thinking about on the MSBU, and I'm saying thinking about, so you know where I'm thinking, and I want your help in the next month to evolve this idea. I want to show you one. I think this could work, okay?
I got a really quick question.
Oh, yeah, okay, sure.
So I'm working with a lot of unknowns here and trying to predict a lot. The $2 million that you brought up earlier, is that include the projected cost of mitigation?
Yes.
Okay, what is that projected?
Why don't afterward, I'll share the spreadsheet from the engineer, I'll give you exactly the answer. I don't have it loaded in, but I have the answer to that, and I'll be happy to show it to you afterward. And it's a lot. The mitigation costs, it's not small, it's real money. Okay. I'm going to talk about an MSBU. This is an island tax base. We all know that there's an MSTU, as Andy pointed out, west of the Manasota River, right? That is an MSTU. It's a property tax-based assessment. That is in existence. There is an MSBU on Don Pedro Island. We know that. There isn't one on Manasota Key, right? That's basically the taxing landscape you're in. I'm going to talk about, we need an MSBU on Manasota Key. We need an MSBU on Don Pedro Night, and we need that inland district. I like these pieces, and I need my county, and I need my state money over there too. But the MSBU, I think we need to create one for Manasota Key, and I think we need to reform the one on Stump Pass. It's a little tricky, I got to tell you, and all the places I've worked, the property ownership on these islands is the most complicated thing I've ever seen. How the ownerships are split up, and it's very complicated. But let me show you, right? We're back to the coalition slide because I want you to know I'm with you. We got to do the coalition. Okay? These other funding sources we're going to chase down and that we're going to investigate are coming from people calling us and say, Peter, can we put a toll on the bridge? Can we do beach badges? Can we do parking? Somebody called me and did a very good explanation about telecom tax receipts in the county, which I've never heard of before, which we're going to try to learn something about. Bed taxes and sales taxes and things. I don't know if any of that stuff's going to work out or not, y'all, but we're going to try to work it and report it back to you and help us understand it. We got to do some work on that stuff. We've started, done some work on it. The MSBU on the island. So I'm not trying to focus everything on the island, so know that I'm not saying that the coalition doesn't exist or we're putting all of the costs on the island. I'm talking about a district that doesn't exist on the island. My general thinking is the district method on Manasota Key and Stump Pass Don Pedro should be comparable in design, in theory, because they're both similar in terms of what they're doing. So, thinking about this MSBU on each of the islands, all the properties, I think the boundary of that MSBU should be from the beachfront to the back, not just the beachfront. I think that the assessment factors, I like these three for the beachfront now, okay? The length of the beach you have in front of your house should be a factor in how much you contribute. Would you say that someone with a 200-foot wide lot and somebody with a 50-foot wide lot on the beachfront should pay probably a different amount? Would you think that makes sense? Yeah, me too. The size of a lot is the value, is an asset valuation idea. The bigger the lot, the more value, and the more at risk the value. The size of the lot on the beach should be a factor. If someone has a quarter-acre lot and someone has a 2-acre lot, do you think the guy with the 2-acre lot should pay a little bit more than the guy with a quarter? I do. Can we go there? I want to know how many units are on the property. If there's a single-family house on a lot and next door there's a 10-unit condominium, I think the number of units, because it has to do with the benefit and the economics of the property, should be a little higher. These are the factors that I think make sense to me. But we're going to look at talking that through with you. Let me show you an example. All right, this is going to look very mathematical. Hang with me, it's not that bad. This is an Okaloosa Island 3-factor MSBU on a barrier island. I left all that. Okay. There, we will figure out how much money the MSBU has to generate to support the program. We have to figure that out together. This one was a $500,000 MSBU. How much of the money should come from the beachfront? How much should come from off the beach? We do that by looking at the benefit that the beach does. If you're a beachfront owner, you're getting the benefit of the storm damage protection. If your house is a half mile back on the beach, you're really not getting the storm damage protection. The beachfront gets a different and greater benefit from someone who lives further back. Is that reasonable, rational? I don't think this is how the tier starts to be thought about. So in this case, I'm trying to get $512,000, that pink number up there, $512,000 out of this MSBU. The beachfront is going to pick up $307,000 in this assessment, and the off-beach people are going to add $205,000. It's tiered a little higher, but you cannot put all the costs on the front. The benefits of good beach management are wider. There should be a difference, but can we pound all of the money out of the beachfront? You really can't do it. If you don't live on the beach, how do you pay in this theory? I want to know how many people live on the island. In this case, there were 3,898 taxpayers, a pretty big island area. I said, I need $205,000. That's $52 each, buddy. Pro rata, equal share. You live off the beach, you have a chance to go to the beach, you get recreational benefit to it, you have access like everybody else. I don't care how often you go. I don't know how big your house is. I want to know how many people come on Thanksgiving. I want you to pay a share. And in this case, now, believe me, these are not all the same. I didn't pick a low one just to do one. It's just one I know. $52 a year for all of those backside taxpayers. And the beachfront folks, this is just a short part of a spreadsheet that is every beachfront property on that island. And we are starting to compile the data for a spreadsheet like this for you. We're going to try to work with this model if you think it makes sense to you. But this is just a snippet. These are the condominiums on this island. Just happen to have these. Aquaville is a condo. It has 0.72 acres of property. I give it some points. I give it 1 point for every 1/10 of an acre. It gets 7 points. The guy next to him, the Azure condominium, has 4 acres of property. That guy gets 42 points. It gets the same ratio a point. They have a beachfront. They have a number of units. One condominium has 24 units, and the other one has 136 units. I give you a point for each one. I'm just going to count facts here. The third category is beachfront length. For every 10 feet, you get a point. One of them has 240 feet of beach. He gets 24 points. The other guy's got 500 feet of beach, 516. He gets 51 points. Then, each of these properties has a point total. There's a 55-point property in Aquaville. There's 230 points on Azure. Right, we're scoring it on objective criteria that's related to the benefit you're getting. It's something we can objectively count and measure. It's fair. We're not trying to edit it. We just let it be what it is. So I have a storm damage reduction parcel assessment, which is a percentage of the total amount I got to collect. You have a certain number of points. That's, the first guy's got $2,484 as a condominium unit. Building, all of it. Each unit's going to pay $103. And they have their $52 recreation pro rata share. Those guys are paying $156 a year. Boy, that's a good deal. The next guy, you just do the math. We're just going to do the math. I think this kind of MSVU assessment is pretty good. What you have on Don Pedro Island right now is a one-factor MSVU that only touches the beachfront properties, and it's $15.71 a foot. It's not bad. I like this better, and I need the backside people. This is what I'm trying to work on in the model. This is what we're, now, in order for us to develop this model, we got to collect a lot of information and verify it about each property, and we're working on that now. And we're kind of like 65% of the way through being comfortable with the numbers. It's very detailed. But we're going to bring back the general. I think this is what I'm going to bring back. But if you hate it, you think, Peter, that is absolutely ridiculous. You should do something different. Let me know in the next month. But I've seen this one work out, and I think it's fair. And it's not based on the value of the house, you see. It's nice, I like it. And you know what else I like about it is it's stable. So if the economy fluctuating home values, there's a stability to this revenue stream because it's based on characteristics and measurements and physical things. Stable. We need stable. We can't have a funding program that produces a bunch of money and then no money because we have an ongoing program. I want stability. I like this. So what I'm working on, and we're just got to do a lot of staff work. Okay, there'll be a point where the whole spreadsheet is in front of y'all. And you can look at it and toy with it and tell me, you know what, Peter, that's my house right there, and that's not the size of my beach or my lot. I need to know this is how it gets checked out. We're using the records that the county has. But we're in an intensive data collection effort right now on both islands. We're working on developing the model. It's going to we're working with this concept, is what I'm working on. We've got to verify this state share. Now, who was telling me about the state share? I want to verify that state share. I need to know to get this done. We have to make a solid judgment about what we think the state is telling us. And right now they're telling us 39% with current access. Digging that, pretty happy with that, could do better. I need to know about these county revenues. What is the county willing to do here? And I can tell you, in my experience, they're going to be more willing to help if you are to the table first. The politics of this is human beings and how human beings react to each other. If I go to people in Punta Gorda with nothing in hand, what's the people in Manasota keep doing? We're just going to do the same thing you're doing. They're going to say, really? And you're asking me. If I go, look, here's what my owners on the island are willing to do. Here's the MSVU. Here's the fair. Here's the contribution. We need help. It's a different conversation. You can't send me hat in hand to the broader world without it. Because everybody knows that you're going to benefit differently than they will if they live inland in the county 40 miles away. That's common sense. But I believe that the benefits of the beach do register through the whole county. That is the truth. But I can't go talk to them about that if they're saying, what about the owners? Well, it's all a public benefit, you see. They just want you to pay for it. They want somebody in Tallahassee to do it. It doesn't work. I can't sell it. Got to help me. So we got to look at these other revenues. Is there some other way we can add to the pot so it's not all MSVU, MSTU, county, state? Is there something else we can do? Sometimes, you know, I can tell you the bridge toll thing in Florida, I've already been down that road. They aren't going to let you do it, but they won't. And it's not because I don't want them to do it. The state said to Navarre Beach, it was a state-maintained road bridge, and the state said, sure, you want to toll it? Here, we'll give you the title to the darn bridge, and here's the maintenance cost over the next 5 years, and you pay for the bridge, we'll let you have it. The people went, oh, really? How much does it cost to keep this bridge in good shape? They said, you can't tax a public road for the benefit. It just, okay, it's a non-starter, but I'll show you the letters and we'll look at whatever you want to know. It's not going to, that doesn't work. Parking could possibly work, and you have paid parking on Manasota Key at the park there. With the pay pass system, I love it. I actually went and bought parking because I finally got to see a digitally based system. I'm interested in the revenues and where they're going. Yes, ma'am. Exactly the same. Watch it online. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of people watching it online right now. And you go on the website and you click a button and it'll tell you how to do it. Or call Lily. She'll say, I don't know how to do this. She'll tell you how to do it. But this is, we're gonna dig on the other revenues. This MSBU model that we're tossing out here, I want you to know because I want you to understand. I'm going to tell you, here's where I'm thinking, this is what I'm starting with. Help me make it different. And I have had MSBU models that included property, commercial properties differently. It's a complex little thing. I don't know enough about it. We sort of looked into that already. I know there are no commercial, let's say restaurants, t-shirt shops on the beachfront. There are obviously rental properties which are commercial in nature. I'm talking about stores, restaurants, and stuff on the beach. There's not any in the zone. So should there be something else added to the MSBU? I don't know. This is an interesting question. Every place is a little bit different. But I want to work with you on it, and I want you to think about it, and I want you to call and say, listen, that's crazy, or this is good, or I like it or don't like it. Yes? Okay, so let me, I'm almost done. You'll see this model sort of fleshed out in January, where it's got some rough assessment numbers. It'll start to take shape, and then you're going to really go, oh, I don't like that one, or that looks pretty good to me. I have not run the numbers to figure it out yet. And when we get it ready and we're reasonably comfortable that there's not a ton of mistakes in it, we'll put it on the table. And then we'll spend a bunch of time making sure that the numbers and the characteristics are accurate. It's never 100% accurate. We do our best, but someone will say, don't you know they tore that duplex down? I'm like, no, I didn't know that. So there's nothing, okay, great, we'll change that. Stuff like that, things change. Property tax assessment records can be a little off. A lot of work. So that's what I'm thinking. We have a project that's scary when you think about the big number. I want you to think about, I tell you, the reason I get a little bit optimistic is when I started working with Topsail Beach and Julian Bone, when they had 845 people in the town and a town budget of $3 million and a tax base that was less than $1 billion total. The Manasota Key tax base is $480 million. Just that. They have put, this can be done, but what it takes is we got to think about this and look, everybody's got a stake. We have to figure out a fair way, and I'm going to need your help. I need the support of the people on the island before we can get across the bridge. You follow what I'm saying? I can't go over there without you. So let's work together in January and February. Let's come up with something that you're comfortable with that includes this broader base. But I can't go empty-handed across the bridge. I will lose. We will all lose that. That's the end.
Peter, I'm a president of one of the condo associations over here on the White on the Water.
Okay.
And also on the climate science. My concern, I think you're doing a great job.
Okay.
And I'll say that to all of our owners. My concern is I'm not confident numbers are made.
Yeah.
You've got every 8 years for renourishment and every 4 years for stump max.
Right.
All respectable scientists are predict an escalation in the rate of
Sea level rise. And sea level rise.
Well, sea level rise won't make as big a deal as the big storms. And so the scouring from Maine,
Right.
those areas, we're going to see more and more of those. So I just want to make sure that when we represent to our owners,
Okay.
these are legitimate numbers.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm confident to say that they're big enough numbers. I'm seeing it every 8 years, and every 6, and every 4,
Yeah.
et cetera.
And for the folks here online, this is a really, really important question. What is the cost estimate, revenue demand? And we have to get comfortable. What I have, and when Michael Pop gets a little further down the line, I'll show you the cost estimate. There's more detail in it, and it includes a 25% contingency. Because look, we're talking about things that we don't know that can change. And what we have to do is come up with a reasonably solid, comfortable estimate. It's never going to be what actually happens. We all know that, any more than we can predict the cost of a water plant 10 years from now or a cost of a stock. We all make good judgments. But I think what I want to make sure from Michael, and I said, what's the contingency flex in the number? How much room do we have just in case? 25% is a pretty good contingency number in engineering planning. But this, as Michael goes through the design process here, those numbers are going to get more confident as they get the design details all the way down. So it's the right question. We have to, and I want to say to any of you who want to look through go through a spreadsheet, an engineering cost estimating spreadsheet, I'm ready to do it for you. It's not a hidden thing either. We got to make a good call there.
I agree, I've done that.
Maybe not.
So the question is for you to put in some financial contingencies beyond not more ones.
But other backup.
If
Yeah.
it does escalate,
Right.
to have a way to reopen.
Could be, and these are this is the tough work of financial planning, but it's exactly the right, responsible thing to do. If we can figure it out, I'll go down the path with you. Yes, ma'am. Oh, I'm sorry, Andy. Andy, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't see you there.
This is for you and John Lyons. John Dunbar was president of the South Minnesota Key Association. Still couldn't be here tonight. But the board of the association has back almost to the point of saying that if you wanted to do a mail report survey, the 1,800 property owners that are on St. Rebecca Key and Manasota Key,
Okay.
is that the association might pay for that survey.
Wonderful.
Just to let you know.
Wonderful. Anything you can do to help us make sure we're talking to the people is good for us. Yes, ma'am, in the back. Hey, y'all, thanks for sticking around. I know that's a lot of information. Thank you for everybody for hanging around.
I'm on the other side of the bridge.
Okay.
My concern, my question is basically to the people of Manasota Key and the other places that the rest of the county as well as themselves are going to, with this money and fixing the beaches, are going to guarantee as much as we can that a Manasota Key continues to exist. So my question is, in terms of future building and the housing that already exists, what's going to be done that will make the water coming up, which is going to happen
Right.
any way you do it?
Correct.
What partnership do the Minnesota and the other places have with the rest of the county that you don't have to keep people in the houses from falling into the...
Well, I tell you, as a fundamental issue, right? That's one of the questions in everybody's heart, deep down, whether we say it or not. That's the question we're all thinking. That's what I think about. Here's how I have come to reconcile it in my own mind, and I'm not sure this works for everybody. When we notice that when we talk about beaches, we ask ourselves, is this something we're going to have to do forever? Because it doesn't make sense for us to do that forever. Let's put ourselves in a couple other positions where these recurrent things happen. Am I going to have to paint my house every 5 or 10 years? I have to do this forever? I shouldn't paint the house. That's not how it works. Am I going to have to maintain this road system and repave these darn streets for the rest of time? They'll say, well, that makes no sense at all. We're not repaving the streets. We're not right? Or even better, for channel maintenance and ports, right? Are we going to dredge this channel that nature just fills back up? Are we going to fight Mother Nature that keeps putting sand in the channel over and over and picking it up and moving? And the answer to that question is yes, we are. And it is what we do. And when you're in a dynamic environment like the shoreline, we're going to manage the condition of this sediment. The only difference between channel maintenance at Port Charlotte or any other port on the Gulf or in the United States is that in those cases, we're trying to get the sand that nature moves into a place to get it out. And in this case, nature is moving out of a place, and we're going to put it back. And we're going to continue. We're going to commit to do that if it's financially sensible forever. And this is how the world works. We don't say, gee, it doesn't. No one says, can you come up with a way to stop channels from filling with sand? I'm tired of paying for this. Because it makes no sense, because everybody knows that's an impossibility. And this is why I'm saying, I don't know what it is. I call it the Hawaiian shirt syndrome. Why do we lose our rational thinking when it comes to a beach? All of a sudden it's a beach and everybody's like, well, that's just going to have to be done again. That's ridiculous. I said, well, let's go over here to the port and see they're digging this stuff out every 2 years and no one goes, well, that's ridiculous. It just doesn't even happen. When there's something about the beach that we change our thinking in ways that aren't sensible. I think, yeah, are we putting sand on the beach over and over? You bet. You want a beach, you want sand in a moving, fluid environment to be in a particular place, put it there. Or move it from where you don't want it forever. And you do it because the economics justify it. And I think, actually, the economics of these tourism-based Barrier Island beaches actually pencil out. Now, we haven't done a big economic study on this one, and sometimes they hire fancy economists to do that analysis, but by and large, the state has figured out that letting shorelines collapse and buildings collapse and tourism-based economies collapse is just not good. Yeah, okay, and this is another one which you happen to have on Manasota Key. It's a developed shoreline. It's already built out. In places where the shoreline isn't built, a very good question is, wait a minute, we have a choice here. We can either commit to maintain a shoreline position, or we could just not build there. And I think the thing is here, the die has been cast, so we're stuck. As much as I would like to think we could pick all this stuff up and get rid of it, not have to worry about it, I can tell you the cost of buying all that beachfront property and toting it off is going to be a lot more than the sand is. Oh, it's only 8 o'clock. We did good. We're on time. All right, so for those online and for those still here, I'm going to end the session online. It's 8:10, so we went over 10 minutes. And I'm going to stick around, and I'd like to show, there's some questions about the cost estimates and stuff. Please come up, and we can go through the more detail than is in the slides. Do you have a final question? All right. Yeah. Yeah.
First thing you gotta do is there's a ton of money in this county. No reason why there's no money. That sheriff that spends money like a drunken sailor. You can spend money on small things as it is. I mean, you can go over to Bridge Lower Manasota Beach.
Yeah.
Rebuild the house later. They could have temporarily fixed that house for $16 million.
Wow.
So I mean, there's money right there that goes ahead to the beach. They have to be done.
Okay.
There's a lot of other things that are going on. Building the jails around, that jails with other police stations.
Okay.
Where they could have simply rented out a couple places temporarily. So we had money to do it. And there's a lot of money.
Okay. It's a fair question. That comes up all the time. And do you feel like your county and your local government is fiscally well managed? Now, in looking through the budgets and what I've seen and what the county's doing, I'm like, okay, this is solid here. there's always, but you know, the thing, because what I'm looking for is recurrent, stable, predictable. I know they could have moved $5 million one time, but I need to answer 30. And so the decision making, I'm not trying to say this is a bad idea. We often end up having to address spending priorities in government, and as a consultant, you know, we're outsiders, but I believe people have an honest right to sort of talk about that. But I'm hoping, I think you've got a pretty solid group of folks going here. Yeah. Some decisions. Yeah. Oh, you're kidding. Way to go. So you can help us.